Welcome everyone. A very warm good morning to all of you present here. I am Priyanka. I am right now associated with the DeepRanjani Foundation at the capacity of a psychologist. And as you all already know, that we are actually celebrating the International Month of Persons with Disabilities. So we have actually started this journey on 3rd of December, the International Day of Persons with Disability. So on that day, we actually organized a parent interaction, and we also took a walk to ensure the visibility and letting people know that the presence of the people with disability here around. So that's there, and today is our second initiative of as such, and we would also have another one on 17th this month, when we will be talking about the legal rights and legal issues pertaining to disability issues. So today we have two very special guests with us. One we have with us is Dr. Amrita Panda, and she would be enlightening us on the very interesting and initial, important topic, that is vocational training and employment opportunities in the sector. And we have with us Ms. Divya Somani. She would be talking about the residential care. Why is it so important, and how it can be taken towards a dignified and safe journey, and how it can ensure the dignity and safety that we look forward to having. So thanks a lot for being here with us, everyone who have managed to pull out this time, and because it's very important to know that's a very important cause, and we can never emphasize talking about it enough. So that is why we are planning to come up with actually a year-long program. So this December 2 segments are just the initiation of that. We would keep you posted, and please follow our Facebook, Instagram, and other spaces so that you can know about it. We'll also keep on pinging you here and there at times. So let's begin. Amrita ma'am, over to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. Good morning, all of you. Good morning, Divya. Nice meeting you once again.
Good morning, and likewise.
Yeah. So we would be talking about vocational training and employment in this hour, and the next hour will be facilitated by Divya. So let me share my screen first. I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, it is visible.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. As I can see, most of the participants are from Bengali speaking background, so I'm going to mix my language to Bengali and English, if that is okay with all of you. Divya, I hope it's okay with you too.
Absolutely, please. It's more than
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you, Divya. So today we will be talking about a very important aspect of special education and life of special needs, which is called vocational rehabilitation. So when we say vocational rehabilitation, when we talk about employment, it's still an area quite blurred in our society, in the society that we live in. So from that perspective, it's always extremely confusing for the parents, and also confusing for the professionals, for the stakeholders, to understand how to facilitate this particular area in a way that it can be helpful, it can be meaningful, and it can be dignified for everyone. So all of us know that which is very unfortunate, that in our society, particularly I'll talk about Indian society, where we have approached special needs from a concept of charity, which is extremely unfortunate for all of us because special needs doesn't need charity. We need empathy. We definitely need support. We definitely need a lot of innovation. We definitely need a lot of courage from the parents, from the neurotypical community, from the professionals, and everyone. But the concept of charity and the concept of feeling less when a child is born and when a parent discovers that the child may have some special needs, the first thing that comes up uh, is, is an extreme uh, confusion, grief. Parents are shattered, and in a way, the whole society makes us feel that it's um, we are less even as parents because we couldn't give birth to a so-called normal child. And perhaps the journey of the parents and the child and the allied caregivers, stakeholders, professionals start from that day only, where we start feeling inferior from the very beginning. But the point is, those who are living, breathing special needs for their entire life, we all know how fortunate we are to be a part of special needs life, how fortunate we are to witness such wonderful souls around us. And in a way, those whom we call special needs, the level that we have given them, they are actually in many ways far, far better as human beings than most of us who claim to be normal. So that is where the journey starts. And it's unfortunate in our country, in our society, we are we are fighting it hard. And I'm sure the scenario has changed a lot in last 5 years, I would say. With the increasing number of special needs, we always had this confusion that why why we are uh, why we are meeting so many special needs individual all of a sudden. Why, when we are visiting a social gathering, when we are walking around, why is it like that we are meeting so many special needs children with so many varieties as well? So the question is still unanswered. We do not know what is happening. We do not know the why this upsurge in the number happened. Definitely more diagnosis, more opening up from the parents, but that cannot be the cause, just the only cause for this huge upsurge. So definitely with this upsurge, I believe and I hope and I pray that one day the so-called normals will be minority and the world will be a better place to live in. So while saying that, I do not mean to be insensitive. I do not mean to be uh, I do not mean to be insensitive towards the challenges of special needs. But what I mean to say is the fact that all of us have got a lot of challenges in our day-to-day life, and we are dealing with it. Nobody is labeling us, but we are labeling special needs every single moment and their families, and thereby it's a vicious cycle that we are into, which only we can break, and we can make this journey meaningful for us, for our kids, for the families, and for the all the stakeholders around special needs. So with this introduction, I would like to move to the practices in special needs, where mostly when we look around in the schools around our city, our country, our state, that most of the institutions, special needs institutions, are focused on early intervention and then the following ages, following groups, And accordingly, when a child reaches the age of 14, we call it a pre-vocational age from 14 to 18. And beyond 18, it's a vocational age. But we observe that when the child enters that age group, uh, the the orientation of getting into vocational training, the orientation of getting into a job oriented skill building, the orientation of hope, the orientation of dream is missing somewhere. And that is the reason DeepRanjani started its journey in this particular fraternity. I'm sure there are plenty of other organizations who are coming up with such initiatives, focusing on such initiatives. I'm sure there are vocational training and vocational skill building and small, uh, I mean, professional openings in different organizations. But to make it a focus, to make it the purpose of an institution or a society is extremely important, because after the child finishes the special schooling for a lot many years, they do not know what they are supposed to do after that. More so, the parents they do not know what to do after a certain age. They do not have a direction because the kids they do not have a direction. They do not know how to make their life more meaningful, and they feel less anyway when they see people around them. They're working, they're engaged, they are having a regular life, but they are sitting back home, and many a times they are with this whole with this whole stagnation in their life. They are kind of bored. They develop a lot of stress anxiety symptoms, and which may lead to psychopathological conditions like depression, clinical depression, and obsessive compulsive disorders, and many such things. And it's a journey where they do not have, after a certain age, they do not have a platform where they are accepted, where they are loved, where they are encouraged to use their best potentials. So that is the purpose of vocational training, vocational rehabilitation in special needs fraternity. And when we talk about vocational education, what is vocational education? Vocational education is all about skill training. It's about uh, training a person with special needs, be it an intellectual special need or a physiological special needs, to train the person as per their abilities, as per their strengths, and to identify the kind of skills that they can acquire through assessments, through understanding their abilities, and then getting them into such areas where they can actually explore their abilities and master the abilities at their own capacity, and use that skill in doing something meaningful, use that skill in doing something in their professional life, and make their life meaningful, contributing to their life satisfaction as a whole. And it's not just about the individuals of special needs, it's also a lot about the family. It's a rehabilitation process for the entire family as well. So that is about vocational education. In vocational education, we are doing skill training. We are introducing the concept of a professional life, the concept of a job, how employment opportunities are available around us in our country, society, as per the abilities of the individual. And when we expect an individual to go for a professional environment, there are many other things that they need to learn. Among all of it, a very important part is job related functional academics like money transaction, like basic writing skills, and of course, their way of communication, behavioral aspect, how to communicate their stress and anxiety when they're unable to do something, how they are supposed to reach out. It requires a lot of, and it's a multifaceted education, and it needs to be, it's not just about skilling, it's not just about skill building, it's about a lot of aspects together, combined, that can give an individual with special needs an empowerment which they can use to improve their quality of life. So that is what we mean by vocational education. And so, as I discussed, that the vocational education uh, is primarily focused to to offer the individuals to a secure employment opportunities. And when we say secure employment opportunities, that's a huge question mark in our society, in the society that we live in. It poses a lot of challenges to find a place that is safe, that is secured, and where people understand, people are sensitized about special needs, where people understand how to deal with the uncertainties of special needs. I'm sure in all work environment, all the professionals, they go through different phases, they go through their share of ups and downs. But when it comes to special needs, what happens due to lack of sensitization, lack of awareness, the work environment, the people in a work environment, they are not aware of special needs. They do not know, they are not confident how to reach out to a person. Even if a lot of people, most of the people in this society, it's not like people are rude. People are generally empathetic, but they become rude when they do not understand, when they do not know how to reach out, when they do not know how to manage a situation and how to conduct themselves around a special needs individual. So the whole point is lack of education, lack of awareness, lack of sensitization in the employment corporate sector, which is, I'm sure, is coming up as a huge opportunity of focus for any special needs organization who are focusing in vocational education as well as employment opportunities. And it's a huge unexplored area so far. And the more we work on it, the more organizations, individuals, parents come up and join hands to continue this movement. It's still going to be less because the work is so much. So that is about vocational education. When we talk about vocational rehabilitation, what is vocational rehabilitation? Vocational education is a time-bound process. We educate a person, we try to develop skills, we train the person for a job environment, we train the person with other behavioral skills. That is a skill building process, and that is a time-bound process beyond which we start supporting, offering our support to those people who have already developed their skills and who are into professional environment. So a vocational rehabilitation means continuous vocational guidance. It's a continuous process. So after we train people with vocational skills, after we offer vocational education, vocational rehabilitation is going to be a long-term process where we kind of guide people with the opportunities, just as in our families, the family members look for better opportunities. Somebody is working in a small IT company today. He's looking for a better opportunity naturally. So it's the same with it's supposed to be the same with special needs. Today it looks like an impossible dream, but that's how it was supposed to be. it's still a dream because we haven't walked the path yet intensively. And I'm sure that there will be a time, and that will come within our lifetime, where even the special needs will evaluate opportunities if they should join company A or company B or organization C, which fits their need the most. But that's a long journey, and that's a very extensive preparation from the parent community, from the families, and from the professionals' perspective. So it requires vocational guidance, vocational training, and of course, the placement is a very important part that we are going to talk about in this session. And combining this, it's a teamwork. It cannot be done by a parent alone, a family alone, or an organization, a company alone. It has to come. It has to be a movement, because it's this whole fraternity is lacking far behind than the need of the individuals. So it's definitely a movement for all of us, and all of us need to join at our best capacity. We can, most of the people, even those who are present today, most of us, it's human nature, it's human psychology that we feel that the other person will do whatever is supposed to do, whatever is needed to be done. Who am I to bring in a change? I'm a very small person, I'm a very small entity in the society. It doesn't matter which profession you are in, which family you belong to, but we have this inherent tendency of shouldering responsibility to the person next to us, not taking ownership of our own life, not taking ownership of our own responsibilities, and the mess that we are living with every single day. So this is my invitation to all of us who are present here today. Trust me, all of us can make difference. No one is less. Even a parent even a parent who's a single parent, who is aged, who is not so educated, you can also take part in this whole movement through your approach to this whole process. So I'll before coming to the challenges part of vocational needs, I would like to touch upon the purpose of vocational rehabilitation. I'm sure we have already discussed, and it's about receiving training for new occupation. So when we talk about vocational training, what can be a vocational training? When we look around in most of the organization, we focus on handicrafts, we focus on stitching, we focus on maybe bakery, we focus on spices, we focus on candle making. These are the popular vocational skills around us. But there are different avenues coming up, like multimedia training, like automobile, uh, uh, like empowering in automobile skills. Like there are many such avenues which are still there, which are still open, where we can actually, it's all about, it doesn't matter what is the fraternity where we are trying to do skill building. It's about the strength of an individual. We know how variable special needs community is. They have their own gift, they have their own limitation. So it's possible that they can be a part of the beauty and wellness industry. It's possible that they can be a part of maybe a front office, back office. It's possible that they can be a part of office assistant in any fraternity, like in medical fraternity, in engineering fraternity, whatever it is. It's about skilling. It's about having the focus that what we are trying to do with the skill training, and what is the roadmap, how we are planning to move forward. And the whole purpose of training for new occupation, finding a job, a fit for that particular person, and then the whole challenge of retaining the job, which is perhaps the most important, the most it's a severe most challenge of the whole vocational rehabilitation process, and then of course building permanent careers. So as I started with the fact that the kind of monotony, the kind of quality of life that adults, most of the adults of with special needs, particularly intellectual special needs, have in our community, every single moment it reduces their self-esteem and thereby impacting their self-concept, their mental health, their uh, quality of life, life satisfaction as a whole. So this whole process of vocational rehabilitation is aimed to help them to earn their self-esteem. It's already there inside themselves. It's just missing because of the treatment that the special needs fraternity, the individuals, families, stakeholders have received from the very beginning of their life. It's there. We are not gifting them with something new. It's there inside them. The whole purpose of a vocational rehabilitation is to support them to earn their self-esteem back, to celebrate, to help them, to enable them to celebrate their self-esteem and lead a dignified life. So that is what the purpose of vocational rehabilitation is. And when we look around, so in today's community, I would talk about India, we see that there are different organizations. When we talk about Pan India, there are different organizations like Lemon Tree, like Cafe Coffee Day, like Wow Momo, and many such organizations. These three companies have started it in a big scale, but there are other organizations as well which have started their journey to inclusive work environment. We know that in Lemon Tree, in every single property of Lemon Tree across India, we have one person with special needs in their facility. So that's a wonderful initiative. And the corporates are coming up with their inclusive HR policies these days. So they want to include. It's not like people only want to push away the special needs community. Because in general, I believe, and I would love to believe, that people in India are still empathetic. I'm sure it's true for the entire world, but I'm just talking about our country. In general, they are empathetic. Nobody loves to be extremely rude and mean to others in general. I'm sure there are individual differences. But uh, when such a company, say Lemon Tree, when such a company wants to recruit an individual with special needs, where do they find them? And how to understand which person is capable for the job, for the profile they are offering. So the job mapping part. And then when a person when a person with special needs gets into a corporate sector, the kind of challenges the person meets every single day. Who is there to support, train the person on the job? And while the person enters the community, the corporate environment, the so-called neurotypicals, they are at all. They do not know how to deal with that person. When a person is non-verbal, they do not know how to communicate. Even if a person is verbal, they do not know how to reach out because most of them are unable to speak their heart out to their colleagues, whatever be their special needs. So it's a requirement of the hour that there are agencies, organizations, companies, individuals who will come up with initiatives to support, to cater to this huge need in our society. We are constantly blaming others that we do not have an inclusive environment. But I think what we need to focus on is the fact what we are doing about it. Are we really doing something meaningful? Are we really taking any initiative which is going to make even a small change in our society? So I think and just as I said, it's like everybody is waiting for someone else to start. I'm sure we have started in our organization, DeepRanjani, we have started. There are wonderful initiatives in the city. We have started in this year only. Oh, and again in this year, there are other wonderful initiatives which have came up. I'll talk about it and I'll let you know about the opportunities that we might have for our kids sitting in our city. So I will move to the part where we talk about employment types of special needs. We all know we may have open employment. We all know we may have supported employment. But the fact is, we know these terms, we know these opportunities, but the challenges behind it. So in an open employment is a place where after vocational training, the individual moves to an inclusive place. An open employment is supposed to be an inclusive place. And in a supported workplace, it's a place where the individuals are supported by the special education fraternity, by the mental health professional, by the caregivers, by other specialists on a regular basis to make use of their best potential. So it's a cumulative. Once again, I will say it's a cumulative initiative where all of us can come forward to have uh, even small units of special needs employment, small units. We cannot, as individuals, we cannot really uh, take open employment a lot forward. For that, we need a community. It has to be a cumulative initiative. It has to happen from organizational perspective. But as an individual, with the provisions that we have, with the provisions that we have as parents, with the provisions that we have as families, as our friends and people around us, we can actually plan for a supported space at our own capacity. It can be small, it can be for 5 people, but it makes a lot of difference to contribute to 5 people's life in a lifetime. It's a wonderful, wonderful initiative. And I believe all of us, most of us, can at least do something instead of sitting back home to start something which can contribute at least to some individuals who are really, really fighting with their adulthood and they do not know what to do with their life. They're extremely bored. They do not have a meaning of life. So we can, I'm sure if we try, it may not be perfect. And once again, perfection is a myth. It's a terrible trap. There is nothing called perfection. The term perfection is extremely imperfect. So let's not look forward to perfection. Let's give it a try. Because what looks like perfection to us today may look extremely imperfect when we reach there. And we may thrive for more. So let's take it forward at our own capacity. I understand it's difficult. I understand there will be challenges, but there are organizations, professionals here in our country who can support you, who are there, who intend to support you. It's not just, it's not a rivalry. Special needs is a very small community, a very small community to compete. It's a space of collaborative work because the beneficiaries, the number of beneficiaries is too much to cater by the existing organizations in our country. So it has to be collaboration. It cannot be competition anyway. So even at individual space, if you come up, definitely there are organizations who will be very happy to assist you as individuals, as parents, and as organizations to take it forward from wherever you stand. So I would really like to focus now on the challenges of vocational rehabilitation, because I believe this is the area where we need to focus the most, because most of us know what is open employment, what is supported employment, and for his vocational training. So I would start with a very controversial pointer, that is mindset of stakeholders. And I believe I have started my talk with this point only, that we are made to believe that our kids cannot do a lot of things. We constantly tell ourselves, we are talking about parents and families here, we constantly uh, tell ourselves that my child won't be able to do it. He is not capable of doing it. But the point is, unless you try it, there was a time where Everest was not reachable. And now it's a time where it's like a vacation spot. So I'm sure uh, unless we try, we do not know what potential we all have got. That includes our kids as well. So what happens is, even when a child gets a job through a job fair or through any other channel, most commonly we see that the parents accompany the child all the time. I understand it's required at the beginning, but there are different levels, different severity of individuals with special needs. But we see the parents are accompanying their children even after 6 months, and they're sitting there in front of them, and they're observing the whole process. It's very important for our fraternity. I'm sure many people are going to hate me for this, but it's very important for the parents, particularly the mothers, to know, to understand. They are already good mothers. They have already got that certificates. It's time to get out of this trap of being a good woman and a good mother. You are supposed to have a life of your own. You are not supposed to dedicate your life. I'm talking about both the parents. You are not supposed to dedicate your entire life for the kids, because in turn, that is making the kid's life more horrible. That is not enabling him or her to be empowered. And I absolutely have respect for the stress, anxiety, uncertainty from the parents' part. But we also need to understand what is the right way to deal with this confusion, to this stress, this anxiety, this uncertainty. Because it's not possible that you will be there for your child's entire life. And the dependency, the level of prompt, the level of dependency at every single step of the child's life is actually impacting the child in a negative way. And it's not okay to live everything in your life for your child. It's not okay. I understand that it's immensely glorified in our society that a woman has left everything for his child, be it a special need child or a neurotypical child. It's not okay. It's not okay for a father to leave everything in his life because he has got a special needs child, because someday it's going to backfire. The frustration, we are human beings. As parents, we are no gods. So it stays there inside us. It stays in the form of frustration, anger, behavioral concerns, and it comes back, it hits back the child in a very, very negative manner. So there is a way to balance, there is a way to understand balance. And when I'm saying this, I understand that there are different severity levels of special needs. I'm not saying that nobody wants to stay back. Nobody needs to stay back. But it shouldn't be a general practice. It's not okay. It's not okay for the kids. And with this uh, enormous involvement in our kids' life, at times when a person gets into a professional life, we tend to make a mess of that step forward by being too involved in it. Because I'm sure all of us, we have worked in different sectors. Whenever we started a new job, we had faced a lot of challenges. We have been through a lot of challenges throughout our professional career. So, and it's on us how to accommodate with those challenges, how to come up with a solution. I understand that it's difficult for a special needs to compete in such a sense with the neurotypicals in an inclusive job environment, but it's not impossible. And beyond possibility and impossibility, let them try. Don't We are talking about an inclusive society. We need to ask ourselves, are we inclusive? Do we respect our kids? Do we respect their abilities? So they might not succeed, but let them try, let them fail. And there are there will be support in the fraternity to help them, to train them to deal with those challenges. I'm sure as parents, you will also be helping the children at their workspace challenges, but not being there, not intruding into their workspace in any capacity. It's their space, it's their place of freedom, I would say, and challenge as well. So, so the first thing is a mindset that is, my child can't do it. He is not capable of it. And the mindset of not dreaming for big. Why settle with less? I understand that we are very limited in our access, in our whatever we are supposed to enjoy as a human being. I know we are limited, but unless we look forward, it's going to remain that way for a lot of generations going ahead. So it's important to dream. It's important to see how far we can reach. It's important to set goals. So that is about the mindset of the parents, and of course for the professionals. It's a very important area. I personally believe that the journey of rehabilitation of special needs is not just a prerogative of individuals who have got a special needs in their families as a child, brother, parent, whatever it is. It's a responsibility of the entire fraternity. It's not like, and trust me, many a times I have faced in my personal life that uh, is it possible for a person to understand special needs if you do not have someone, if you do not have brought up someone in your own family? Yes, it's possible. It's different. I'm sure it's different. Just as it's different for all the parents, the way they rear their child, the way they groom their child. It's definitely different, but it's not impossible. It's not like people won't understand. So it's also a responsibility of the entire mental health social work fraternity to, I understand that disability, special needs fraternity doesn't pay well, to be very straightforward. But unless you push the agencies to pay you good, they're not going to pay better, ever. Unless you come up with promising ideas, unless you come up with promising impact. No, it's not a one-way process. It's a both-way process. We cannot keep on complaining that the organizations, they do not pay well. The organizations do not pay well also because they do not find promising people. They do not find people who actually push them every single day, pay me more. So it's a teamwork. It has to be extremely the responsibilities should come from all the ends, from all the stakeholders. So the mindset, I believe, in case of vocational rehabilitation, job, employment, getting into an employment, retaining an employment is a huge mindset issue. And of course, as I mentioned, first, the focus of special education in our country, we do not have this. When we start special education as from the age of early intervention, we do not have clarity what we are going to do after a certain age. So I believe the focus of special education also needs some modifications, some more research, some more standardization, where we actually know where we are leading to, what is waiting for us, what we are when we are working with a child, what we are aiming to, what do we want to achieve through the whole process. So the special education is definitely needs a lot more structured approach where we know what we are doing, where we have a clarity. Now comes my favorite topic of the challenge, which is social initiative versus a business venture. So what's the difference? So we see that in our society, in our fraternity, there are many organizations who have taken up social initiatives in the form of including special needs, or there are some setups run by special needs. But we are extremely scared to even think of a business venture, a company, establishing a company for a job focusing on job of special needs, because we are not in the mindset to believe that even our kids can earn profit, even our kids can contribute and to a system where it can earn profit to the sector, to the community. So once again, when it's a social initiative, I do not intend to disrespect social initiatives. I'm sure even when it's a business, even when it's anything else, it's also a social initiative all the time, because whole the whole idea of special needs has uh, got a socio-cultural perspective to it. But it's extremely important that we also try to reach out, because when we talk of special needs, it's not just a severe group. There are different ability groups. There are Down syndromes who have got their unique talents. There are autism spectrum disorder individuals who have their unique gifts. There are individuals with physical challenges. They also have their own wonderful abilities. So why not? So it's not explored because we are scared, because we are busy, we are occupied to meet the basics. We do not have the courage to go beyond and think about the areas which are not explored, which is still a dream. So I'm very happy to share with you that there are organizations coming up with such initiatives in our country, pan India, and they are focusing on. They do not want their kids to receive 1,000 rupees end of the month. They want their kid to earn. They want they want their kids to get a employment offer with 8,000 bucks a month and gradually improve, go through the appraisal process and gradually improve. So this is not something impossible. It looks impossible because the initiatives are so few. So that is how we know in our city we have a couple of social initiatives in the form of cafe, in the form of other openings, like I Can Fly, like Sip and Bite, like other initiatives maybe I'm not aware of. I'm very happy to share with you that there is another organization by a very leading ladies, I should say, which is a LLC company named Able Fable by our very own Choitali Gami and Lipika Bhattacharya, the very encouraging people who have started. All of us, we do not know where we are heading at. We do not know what we will achieve. We at DeepRanjani, we started as a company because we believe in non-charity concept. We do not need do not need your charity. We would like to be empowered. Enough of charity, enough of sympathy. It's too much for a single lifetime. Let's earn some respect. And I'm sure we have this. It's our right to earn respect. It's not that somebody will be offering us respect. We are supposed to explore our own life and earn respect to take it forward. Of course, the second point that I mentioned is lack of well-tested business models. Just as I mentioned, it's all in a very preliminary stage. So, of course, there will be challenges. We will be stuck, and then we will walk once again. Because wherever we stuck, there will be two ways to move forward, maybe multiple ways to move forward. We need to choose the best, which is at the best interest of the special needs community, not at the best interest of the business owners or the social initiative owners. It has to be at the interest of the beneficiaries we are catering to. And of course, the eternal problem of funding, investment, grant opportunities, the financial issue in special needs. We cannot see any government level movement to a better world in terms of funding, investment, grant opportunities in case of special needs. I'm sure even the government will wake up one day and they will actually look into it and try to be support from the perspective of state and country to support this very difficult fight that people are taking up every single moment. But it's a hope that all the corporate sectors, they have come up with their CSR initiatives. So there are people who are willing to contribute. There are different in social level, there are in state level, there are small business opportunities, loans, funding are there, but I'm sure it's extremely complicated and extremely blurred, like the availability of the whole process throughout the country. It's not just about our state. So definitely this is an area where a lot of support is required from the government, from the individuals. And trust me, it's not just a government responsibility. Once again, we cannot shoulder the responsibility to someone else. Even as individuals, there are donors, people want to donate, but people are not sure if their money will be utilized properly. So as non-government sector, we have earned that repute of non-transparency throughout the years that we need to work on to change this repute to a completely different direction. Because people are willing to pay, be it 5,000, 5 lakhs or 5 CR, people are willing to pay. People are not sure where to pay. If the money will be utilized for the purpose, they are donating the money, investing the money. So it's once again, it's a responsibility from the organizational perspective to come forward and mobilize this transparency, integrity at a very basic level. So, of course, the roadmap, I would like to conclude, the roadmap will be the social initiatives, the self-employment part, like I said, the parents, if they want to start with small initiatives, and they ask help from the organizations who are working on this particular area. And of course, business ventures are definitely employment, are the three most important employment opportunities with three different flavors. The ideas, the basic ideas, the approaches are extremely different in all the three areas. So maybe this is the possibility going ahead in case of vocational rehabilitation and employment opportunities as it looks from this moment. So this is us. Reach out if you feel like, if we can make any difference. We will be very happy to be to support you. Supporting you is also being supported, because growth is a cumulative process. And it's a pleasure to be around these wonderful souls for a lifetime. And with that, I would conclude. If you have a question, I would be very happy to answer. I'm sure Divya is also waiting. Priyanka, over to you.
Thank you so much. And I think throughout the presentation, যেটা সব থেকে important মনে হলো, the insight part. Like the way we are so habituated to look at certain things and there can be other aspects and perspectives to it. এইটা establish করতে এতটা সময় লেগে যায় যে we need to keep on saying it aloud, বার করে. Thanks a lot for the wonderful presentation.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So, do we have any query from the house? যদি থাকে আপনারা chat box access করতে yes Satyam, please.
Yeah, I mean, can we voice it out, or we need to
Sure,
put it in a
sure.
form of a question?
You can ask Swati.
Yeah. Good morning. In fact, it's going to be afternoon, and Divya is also waiting for her presentation or whatever talk she has. It's just an observation. It's not a question, really. But before that, Amrita, that was a wonderful talk, I would say. I mean, yes, we had a backup presentation going on, but then the way you felt and the way you expressed the whole thing, I think it went down very well with all of us.
Thank you.
That is one. The second is that what I only have one simple thing to say, like being a parent of a special child who has been doing I would say good enough or well enough to have become a young adult now. The vocational rehabilitation is something which we have been talking about and thinking about, but now it's a happy situation that we are talking about it in a more concrete manner. The only thing that concerns me very much is when we say that, yeah, let them go into the world and let them grab the opportunity, and it's okay if they fail. My only concern remains like it's a question of demand and supply, like even with neurotypical I would say what word should I use, neurotypical candidates. The demand and supply in our kind of a society is so much lopsided that it becomes so much difficult for a special child or a special adult to again get an opportunity once he fails. So the challenge becomes that way so much more for them to prove themselves right the first time, the best way they can. So that is what is a concern we must keep in mind, that even if, like in all neurotypical cases, even if there is a failure, we still want to try them on. But with our children, it becomes it's so easy to kind of label them. See,
Can I respond, Swati? Can I interrupt you
yes,
here, please?
please.
So, Swati, when we talk about the neurotypicals, all of them are not IITians or Jadavpur pass outs or presidency pass outs and everything. They fail. And when they fail, many of them, they do not get a job for years. They stay back home. They get into depression. They fight their way out. So this is particularly what I was talking about. We are talking about inclusivity and considering our child as special on our own. So it gets very difficult. I understand and respect the parents' concern. It's not that I'm disrespecting your concern, but it's a concern. Tell me one thing: when we send the child to school today, do we always feel safe? It's not about special needs. Just talking about the neurotypical children. So when we send them to school, we do feel unsafe when we send them through a school bus. Different people are there, there are different kind of safety issues. We still send them. We do not hold them back home. We take that risk. It's time that we start taking that risk for special needs children as well. If we talk about equality, we should act equally. No one is going to gift us with equality just like that one fine morning. It's our responsibility to earn that equality.
I perfectly, agree with what you're saying about equality. But I mean, just a simple rejoinder to this is, while we are equals, we also know the challenges and the limitations. Equals in the sense having the equal right to live a dignified life, yes, but along not actually closing our eyes to the challenges that we have. The rest of the
Not at
society
all.
has to,
Right.
yeah, that's it. That is what I'm saying.
Right. And I believe, Swati, it's a good way of taking one step at a time, because overthinking at times stops us from taking a lot of initiatives. So let's take it one step at a time, and let's see what happens. We are at a very
Absolutely.
we are at
Absolutely
very
with you
early
in
stage.
this. Yes. Yes.
Priyanka.
Yeah. So if we have any mini queries, we can. Dira, is it okay if we take the question at the end so
No,
that we
please
can?
go ahead because my presentation is a lot shorter, so we
No
can
problem.
definitely go ahead with
Okay. Okay.
questions.
Sure. Sure. Dira, please go ahead.
Hi, amazing presentation. I learned a lot.
Thank you, Dira.
One question. So, what are specific actions that people can take, neurotypicals can take in general to kind of promote this supported environment that you're talking about? Like, what are specific actions I can do?
So you can do a lot about it. You can be a part of this movement, because it's very important to talk about special needs when we are in a neurotypical community, because we do not have a lot of exposure. Many a times we do not have a lot of exposure at a school or college level, or maybe at a workplace, about special needs. So I believe, as so-called neurotypicals, it's a responsibility of every single individual to introduce those who are sensitized with, those who are aware of special needs challenges. It's a responsibility to sensitize the community wherever we are in, to spread the understanding and awareness of special needs, so that the special needs, when they get into a sector, a typical neurotypical school, college, or work environment, the people already know about them. It's very, very important. And maybe in different countries the awareness levels are different, but they maybe in different cities the awareness levels are different. But those who are aware of special needs, it's always a possibility to take the next step. If we are sensitized about the fact, what we can do, small initiatives. If we can form a group of 3 special needs individuals, and we in our sport group, or in our any activity group, we include them. So that's the next step. Of course we can do that.
I actually had a response to this question as well,
Yeah, please,
if
Divya.
I could go ahead with it.
Yeah, of course.
It was actually something which I was going to mention, but I'm glad you got it up. Dr. Panda has mentioned how, the change, what we can do is, yes, we can always start it, but for it to actually catch momentum and have an impact, it's going to become a movement. It's got to have to become a movement. And here's why, because a lot of the reasons why it's hard to stand up for somebody with special needs or be there for them in your workplace is not always a question of empathy. I feel it's a matter of convenience. I think people are very empathetic and people are very forthcoming as long as it's convenient. I'll give you an example to really put this in place. I've worked with one of my colleagues is autistic, and what happens is that when you're a part of an environment that has corporate values and has certain deadlines to be met, and if you have to balance that out constantly with somebody taking some time to get their point across, or taking considerably longer to process a certain bit of information, or having to constantly communicate something to them while you're also running up against a deadline, it becomes inconvenient to be empathetic. It's something that you come up against. So it's actually in that moment where you have to try to go back into yourself and choose to be patient, even when you know that it is going to inconvenience you. You'll probably have to take out half an hour somewhere else to do a bit of work. That's where it actually starts grating against what you have to do. So it's I'm not saying I'm not always successful in doing it. I do get irritated sometimes because there is a task and there is a deadline, and the world, the way it goes, it isn't going to change for you. But I try in a moment to be that person who is more patient and puts hearing somebody out, even when I know that, there's something else to get to, really much more important, rather than, just saying that, okay, just can we move on right now? So that's one thing that I had to say.
Absolutely. Very important. Even in my head, I was thinking about the word privilege a lot. Because when we talk about issues like equality and equity, we often choose the part, which helps me. So that's really important that, as neurotypicals or maybe as people who are more privileged in certain aspects, to know that we are privileged and kind of to, acknowledge that first so that we can make room for others. Because if we think that amari at the struggle, how will I make the world safe for other people, is never going to help anyone. So I guess that's also very important that, everyone has the legitimate right to be here, and I have to be the person to realize it first thing. So that's, I guess, we are starting beautifully. Yeah, Amrita.
Yes. Thank you, Priyanka. It was a wonderful discussion. I believe it's time that we move on to
Yes,
Divya.
please.
There are some questions on the chat box.
Hmm.
Divya, after you finish off, I think we will take up those questions if we can.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just introduce Divya to everyone here. She is Divya Somani. She is an active part of India Autism Center. She has been acting as an outreach coordinator for a pretty long time now. And as you could already fathom, that she's a wonderful speaker and an amazing person. So she's going to talk about residential care, like, and how it is going to, what's the goal, what are the challenges, and I'm sure like she has a thing, everything planned. So Divya, over to you. Please go ahead.
I should say that I really feel like I've been thrown under the bus having to speak after Dr. Panda, but I think I'll have to accept this situation gracefully and make the best out of it. So please know that this is somebody who's trying to take defeat very gracefully as I go into whatever I have to say. So I actually
Divya, I will intervene, and there is nothing called defeat.
Yes, I think in our field of work, we really need to imbibe that in our personal lives first before trying to help anyone else.
Right, absolutely.
I actually had some things which I wanted to say about vocational training before going up ahead into whatever I had planned for residential care. I do not have a PowerPoint because there's a part of me that hates PowerPoint after years of college. So I'm hoping that because of the Zoom, I'm very glad that Dr. Panda actually did it because, it's really important now, but I'm going to go the old school way and hope that it works out. So going right into it, I've always felt that the term vocational training is very vague in our space. I'm not always, everybody who uses it has a certain, like a different meaning attached to it. Some people just want their kids to be occupied, or some people actually want their kids to earn. I personally wanted a different name for the vocational quote unquote services that we offer at IAC. What I had in mind was meaningful engagement, but the fact of the matter is that most people in our space recognize whatever these group of activities are as vocational training. So we decided to go ahead with it. But the reason why I bring this up is because I have a discomfort with the term, because the cynic inside me feels like it's a euphemism. In my head, sometimes I wonder, but it's not actually vocational training, or it's not actually employment, right? So are we just choosing to be nice, or are we just trying to uplift ourselves when we're trying to say this? I was at a conference organized by the Keystone Institute where I met a person with a disability, and he's an adult now, and he calls going to the organization that he's affiliated with going to office every single day. And I could tell from the demeanor of his father where he spoke, where he's like, yeah, he says he's going to office, but it's not actually going to office. Like, all of us know that, but it's just a sort of secret that we keep, that, of course you're going to office. And one part of me thought that, yes, this is true. But the other part of me thought that actually maybe the term vocational training and employment opportunity should stick around, because it's aspirational. maybe it's not what we want it to be right now, as Dr. Panda said, but this is an aspiration. So we should stick to it. And if he feels that he's going to office and he's getting that experience of going to an office, then isn't that of value? Isn't that what actually matters? Which is what I want to talk about today. It's about the experience that we are able to create for a person with disability, to give them a good life. And the way I want to talk about it is focus on the pre-vocational age, the age of 14 to 18. I'm actually new into this field, just been around 1.5 years, but something that somebody said when I just started off is that when we talk about young adults and adults with special needs, we directly talk about, okay, early intervention, schooling, and then we go into vocational. There's no concept of, say, college. There's no concept of this transition period between your young teenage life and then delving into the work. Like, it's immediately about employment and getting trained in this and trained in that. So the lady's name is Kavita Krishnamurthy. She works for an organization. She's a co-founder of an organization called the Cambridge Academy in Chennai. And she said, what I wanted to do was see how can we create a college equivalent experience for a person with disability. And she said, I thought about what does college life mean for most of us. It means having independence, having the ability to make decisions for ourselves to a greater extent than we ever did throughout our younger years. It means being able to create a peer group and have them as a primary support and relying more on them perhaps than we do on our parents. It means having access to romance and the ability to actually, explore your sexual needs in a way which you don't get to. And of course, it also means on an academic and skills-based front, trying out different avenues, maybe taking up an activity which you would not have taken up earlier and being able to explore that. And what her space does is try to create that in whatever way possible for the adults that whom she works with. So what this example and Mukund's example, Mukund is actually the person who said that he goes to office, made me realize is that I think this is what person-centered thinking actually means. You think about what you can do to create an experience for somebody. And instead of looking at how you would interpret the experience, you see how what that experience would mean to somebody who's actually partaking in them. So if I were to go to college and if for me being independent is, say, coming home at 2 a.m. and not being yelled at for it, maybe for somebody else, just being able to go and make a cup of coffee for themselves, to bundo the atta themselves, to be able to take out a glass of orange juice, if that is something that gives them the same sense of independence, or if that can be made to give the same sense of pride, it is of value. So that's something that I've started thinking about vocational training as something that creates the values that we undergo as we age for a person, although the means and the medium may be different. And the other thing which I wanted to talk about was, of course, empathy and convenience. I think this is the pragmatist in me, or I don't know if it's the cynic in me. I think it's important for us in order to become sustainable and in order to actually become shift away from a charity-based model to an entrepreneurship model, to think about what is convenient and what would suit the market. I think it's not that it's not possible for our space, but very few people actually even think in these terms about how we can actually make something convenient for the market. And trust me, the moment it becomes a matter of convenience in whatever capacity, the marketplace starts it automatically starts moving away from a charity-based model towards something that's more entrepreneurial, something that actually suits the market needs. And lastly, I wanted to talk about an idea which very recently is something that I came across, which really opened up my mind to how we can make this possible, how we can make this shift from a charity-based model to a social and an entrepreneurship-based model possible. I had gone for a conference which was about AI and machine learning and what the future of technology really holds for us. And one of the speakers said that if any of you are under the impression that the industry that I work for will not be impacted by AI and machine learning, will not be impacted by technology, you are mistaken. This disruption is coming for every single one of us, and it's going to bring chaos, as disruption always does, but it's also going to bring a world of opportunity. And it got me thinking that, say, for somebody who's autistic, the people who I have worked with so far, mostly from the autism background, a lot of them have trouble with communication. Is it possible one day, can we at least, even if it's not possible, can we right now expand our imagination to think of how we can have more and more sophisticated forms of communication, more and more sophisticated forms of tools and support system that is outsourced to AI, and that actually allows people with special needs to compete in the market? Because whatever their drawbacks are can be plugged in by AI, can be plugged in by something that's a machine learning device. Yes, it's an expensive solution, but I think that it's valuable to start thinking in these terms, to start thinking about how we can actually now start using technology to make this possible. I mean, Alexa would not have been even fathomable like 20 years ago, but today we say something to somebody and your blinds come down, your lights go off. So I think what the conference did for me was expose me to possibility thinking of one form, and it really made me think about what we can do, how we can start thinking about technology-based support rather than human support, which is also, of course, a huge need, especially for vocational training and especially for making employment competitive in the market and to shift away from the charity-based model. So those are a couple of thoughts that I had as far as vocational training and employment is concerned. I actually prepared a couple of questions for Dr. Panda, which are gender and sexuality specific about vocational training, because I was reading up on her and I read that she is a specialist in gender and sexuality. And I think it's a topic that's being spoken about more, but we don't always speak about the intersectional implications of being disabled and being female, or how disability actually impacts your perception of gender. So I'll begin with my first question, Dr. Panda, before I move on to whatever I had to say about residential care, which is, do you think there's a gender bias in the way in which we conduct or think about vocational training, even as it is right now? Say culinary skills or bakery or candle making or block printing or whatever exists right now. Do you think that we approach the question of vocational training and employment separately, excuse me, for people with disabilities, people with IDD?
So, Divya, in my little experience of last over a decade, I would say that definitely there is a gender-specific choice, but it all depends on the way you look at it, because and it also depends on the way, if we're talking about an institutional training, it also depends on the way the institution heads they see gender and sexuality and gender-based roles, because we cannot expect every single parent to be at that space, because gender sexuality takes a back seat when it comes to, unfortunately, it takes a back seat, which is an extremely important part. And I'm very happy to share that in our capacity building program from January, we have focused on gender and sexuality to a great extent, because this is a topic which is very close to my heart. And I believe unless we address this particular issue, none of the management processes that we are talking about is going to be effective. And I'm sure, yeah, what you said, yes, there is a gender specific way of looking at it, but I'm very hopeful, Divya, that it's changing. It's changing.
That's a very optimistic note, and I'm very glad to hear that. My second question, again, with respect to gender is, and this is actually a broader question, any caregiving based industry, be it the people who, the direct support practitioners or the caregivers for people with disability, the psychologists, the special educators, all of them are predominantly female. It is a female dominated industry through and through. Do you feel that there is an impact somewhere, because say there's a young person with disability and the people who are his immediate circle, the people who are his role models, so to speak, are all female? Do you think that there is a gap somewhere over there where that male role model or somebody who is there to show model that behavior is absent? Do you think that has an impact?
Divya, I'm so happy that you asked this question because it's very unfortunate. I feel it's extremely unfortunate that special needs is dominated by females because maybe in our society, even today, the ratio has improved, but we know that in special needs, the gender ratio is absolutely opposite. Males are more in numbers, which is extremely unhealthy in a way because and when it comes to sexuality and gender issues, we live in a culture where we are very prone to touch each other for no reason, for no good reason. I mean, as if we do not need permission to touch anybody. We have this liberty, we have assumed this liberty as a culture. So it's extremely unhealthy. Uh, and the unfortunate part, and it makes me extremely sad to say that special education had always been an allied profession. Most of the people who got into special education, either they were a family of a special needs or they couldn't fare quite well in other disciplines, which is extremely unfortunate. And I'm very disappointed that we do not talk about it. It's what is the reality? All of us know that this is the reality, but we do not talk about it. And as I mentioned in my talk as well, that this gender bias is there as professionals also because of the commercial factors in our country, in our state, I would say. I think it's better in other states. In our state, it's horrible. So as we live in a gender biased society, the men are responsible for running the family. Still, the men are responsible for running the family in most of the families. So it becomes very difficult for the male professionals to get into a profession which doesn't pay them quite well. And they are capable. And trust me, even when I say that people chose special education in the past out of lack of opportunity, for lack of opportunity, but with time they did so well. They gave so much to this fraternity. They learned so many things. They have loved the fraternity so much. But it's extremely unfortunate, and I consider it extreme. I'm very ashamed of the fact that as organization owners, we really cannot respect the kind of effort that they make every single moment. And I'm sure it's not just when we talk about gender sexuality, it comes with a lot of factors. So that is how I see it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was glad I was able to really pick on your expertise as far as this matter is concerned. So I'll move on to whatever I had to say about residential care. But I'll begin by saying this, and this is true for how we create any service for a person with disability, not just a residential care service. The way to go about it and the guiding principle is actually very simple, and it always comes down to this in my experience. You think about yourself, you put yourself in a given position, and you think about what you would want fulfilled. Then you think about what is it that removes access to those things for the person with disability, and you bridge that. And that's actually all that you need to know. The other answers always make themselves available. So that's precisely the approach that we're using when we go about trying to create or build our residential care service at India Autism Center. The core of a residential care service is actually, and this is something which you will see in other organizations also, is your caregiving personnel. Everything that you offer in your care, in your residential care service, comes down to the quality of care that all the support professionals can provide. And the only way to actually ensure that quality care is provided is awareness, yes, fine, is empathy, fine, but it comes down to cultivating the correct attitude. And that's only possible by embodying it yourself and modeling it for them. So what we're really trying to do right now is see how you can train a professional in a way that helps them cultivate that attitude, to cultivate that sense of being a true equal to somebody with a disability, and then seeing how you can make that into person by person, make that into a culture of an organization. That's the juncture that we're at, and that is the priority that we're assigning to doing this, and that's how we're moving forward. Just to give you an example of what is possible when you are able to create a group of professionals with the right attitude. I met somebody from an organization called Herbertpur Christian Hospital, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Dehradun-based organization. And one of the senior representatives from there gave an example of a 50-year-old woman named Sita Ji. She said that before she was institutionalized in a place and infantilized, treated like a young person, like a child, as people with disabilities usually are. And, you know, once she moved here, slowly they started treating her as a mother figure, as an adult, because she was in that age group. And this person who was sharing her story said that once she brought her kids to her organization, and they said that Sita ji ke pair chuo, that you must bow down to her because you're adult, because she's an adult. And the kids were a little bit taken aback, but they didn't say anything right off the bat, and they did it. And they realized slowly, once these small practices, these small shifts in behavior from the people around her were put in place, she started behaving more and more like a mother figure, like an adult. She would, when people came in, she would ask, have you drunk water? Did you open your shoes? She would bless them. And she kind of came into her own in the role of a fully grown adult. And this actually came simply because of a shift in attitude within all of the people who surrounded her. So that is really the core of the caregiving service. And that's the aspiration that we have to set for what we want to offer at India Autism Center. The other thing that's a much more that's very interesting thing to think about is universal design. I believe many people here would be familiar with what this means, but for people who are not, universal design is a way of designing spaces which makes it inclusive for every single person, no matter what your intellectual or physical ability is. The simplest example to demonstrate universal design in practice is a person in a mall, in an entrance to a mall or any kind of public building. Instead of having stairs, you'll have a ramp, because people who can walk can simply walk up the ramp, and people who say are have a wheelchair, they can go up, and it suits everybody's purpose. When it comes to intellectual disability, there are many other ways of incorporating universal design. So I think what's really interesting is how much detail you can go into and reorient your entire imagination of what a space should look like when you start thinking about how neurodiverse individuals perceive a space. So when we're going about designing India Autism Center, we're thinking about what the signage should look like. What should the color of the sign be? Should there be an icon in front of the sign? Because some people are more likely to think in graphics than in letters. What should be the entire color palette that goes out throughout the organization, throughout the spaces of the organizations, for the signage, for the paintings, for the drawings, that is soothing for people with disabilities? So I think that it's another challenge of setting up a residential space is trying to really find a way to make it suit the senses of a neurodiverse individual to give them an optimal experience. Not that it's not possible in a simpler setting where everything is neurotypical with necessary small adjustments made to a person with disability, but the grander vision is how to design a mini world, so to speak, where everything is tailored to suit the way you think. Again, to give a small example, when we were coming up with the signages and signposts for how we'll of the India Autism Center campus, we have an autistic colleague who vets all of our plans. She says that I find usual signs very confusing. So if I enter into a space and it sort of has 3 doors, I have no idea where to enter from. I simply can't understand. Is it the big door? Is it the small door? I need a clear way forward and to see where I can enter from, as opposed to a neurotypical who would probably just reason that the biggest door is the one that you need to enter from. So the challenge is really about delving into how a person thinks at a very microscopic level and trying to make everything that you design suited to that way of thinking, to bring the most out of that person by aligning everything to how that person thinks. So these are the 2 things that I wanted to speak about: cultivating the right attitude in caregivers and designing a space that really aligns with the way in which somebody looks at the world. The 2 main right now, well, one of the many, rather not 2 main, one of the many factors that are relevant when you're trying to design a residential care space.
Divya, can I have the privilege to ask a couple of questions to you?
Please.
So that we can get into it in more details. So, Divya, I was just wondering if you can focus on I'm very happy the way you approached this residential facility, because I believe that when we talk about residential facility and when we look around the residential facilities available in our state, I would say in our country scenario is definitely better. In our state, it's extremely humiliating, and the absence of safety and hygiene is a basic right of an individual, which is not uh, taken care of to a convincing extent at this moment. I'm sure there are people who are trying. I'm not trying to judge anybody. But then, Divya, when we talk about special needs, we have a we have a very variable socio-economic culture group. So how to cater? I mean, it's not because a person doesn't have money that the person won't have access to the basic rights. So how do you think, not just at India Autism Center, but beyond that, how do you think other individuals, organizations can come up to ensure that availability for parents and the beneficiaries?
I have an answer, but and a semblance of a solution that I've thought about, but it's not a simple one. I was going to mention this, but then I refrained from it. I feel that the long-term answer is actually not an India Autism Center or a DeepRanjani Foundation or any other such foundation to the question of how we can best support individuals with disability. Today, what we are offering, what each of us is offering, is a specialized service, but it is my aspiration that one day the concept of a specialized service will become irrelevant, because all the support and the care and whatever you will need to live a fruitful life will come from within the community that you grew up in. So from your friends, from your family, from your relatives, from your well-wishers, from within the community, everything that you can possibly need is going to be available, and they'll be the people who step up to cater to one of their own. So I really feel that the long-term solution lies within the space that you live in, be it rich, be it poor. I think unfortunately, we live right now in a world where even neighborhoods are now cordoned off based on your ability. But this is a long-term vision. This is a long-term, it's a hope and a dream. It sounds unrealistic, but I still do believe that the real answer lies over there. Until then, it's specialized services and it's everything that we're already doing. But that's where the real solution is.
I understand, Divya, what you are talking about, and this is, I think, all of us look forward to a society like that only. But also, we as pragmatic individuals understand that it will take a long time, and there are thousands, crores of people around who are dealing with these challenges every single moment. So, even at India Autism Center or with your work, I'm sure you have came across many such facilities around. So, do you see any hope for those who are financially marginalized or not so capable of accessing a fancy setup? What do we have for them?
So I would say that I am actually optimistic about the present as well, because we're kind of at a juncture where a lot of people are doing this work. I mean, it's not just an India Autism Center or X Center, Y Center. Across the country, what I see is a mushrooming of small setups like this that are coming up. And I will say that more often than not, they are fairly cost effective and they make a lot of provisions to have people from diverse socioeconomic groups being a part of it. A lot of them work with people who have been institutionalized. A lot of them work with people who have no capacity to pay. So they do it on a completely free basis or at a very nominal fee. So it's actually the people who serve people with disabilities who belong to lower socioeconomic groups seem to be much larger in number than the people who do it on a more, well, not a profitable basis, but do it at a cost. Let me put it that way.
Very true. Yeah, very true. Do you see the same scenario in our state?
Not as of now. I don't see it. If I'm being entirely honest, I don't see it. But once again, I do see a change happening. I do see a shift in place where organizations are coming up. I got to know about a place, the name is evading me, that's coming up in Bolpur, another residential care setup that's coming up that's going to cater to a vast range of people. I do see a shift in awareness. Before, when I was young and when I said that, okay, my brother is autistic, there was no understanding. But now I've not met a single person who doesn't know what autism is. So if you ask me today, do I see a service for people from lower socioeconomic groups? Right now, I can't point you to 5 organizations in the state, but I see the conditions for that shift to become possible happening right now. Those conditions are coming into place.
Is the same. The experience is same on my side too. On this socio-economic status, my last question to you: is there a hope for this group at India Autism Center? Are you planning anything at India Autism Center for this group?
Absolutely. We are already finding and partners and relationships with organizations that provide CSR, and there will be a proper sponsorship plan built up for people who perhaps need more support to avail of our services. So that's also very much a part of the plans.
That is wonderful, Divya. And that is very hopeful, because as you say, that the majority of the community is not at a state to pay a lot for these facilities.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And in continuation with whatever you just discussed about residential facilities, I would like to mention, and I'm sure you will also love to talk about it, that when it comes to residential facility, we talk about empathy, we talk about quality of service, but that can only happen when we have a proper administration process with the correct kind of intent available in an organization. And I believe empathy and professionalism, a balance of both, is extremely important. And most of the times, I mean, the way the world was maybe till 2-3 years back as well, it was more leaned towards empathy. Professionalism was at the back seat. So do you see a hope of getting professionalism at the front seat, along with, of course, skilled empathetic services? Because Divya Somani, I'm so sorry, because Divya Somani is not going to live for 200 years. Mrs. Somani, Mr. Somani, and all the leads are not going to be there, who are creating this wonderful facility. So, as a professional, I find it a challenge as well, because I won't be there for 60 more years. But then it has to be handed down to other people, to professional, with a balance, somewhat balance of these two areas, intent, empathy, and professionalism. Don't you find it extremely? Do you find it? I mean, how do you see it? That's what I would like to.
The way the organizational structure of India Autism Center, I'm just using that as an example, this can apply to any place, is being put in place, is that the organization is its own life. It is not a Mr. Somani or Mrs. Somani or me or the CEO or the managing trustee. We are all there to fulfill roles and to build this structure. But once that structure is in place, it's an independent, self-sustaining entity. And those structures, new people come in to fulfill the roles as old people go, and that's just how life works. But that structure stays in place. That structure moves on, and the structure is a life unto itself. So that's really the hope and goal and the aspiration for India Autism Center. And this is actually one thing I think we have enough and more examples of. This is not treading into unforeseen territories. Look at all the big institutions in the US, or many big colleges and universities in the country. They are not at the behest of any given individual. They have their own setup and their organization, and the institution lives on 200 years, 300 years, and it goes on, and it outlives any of us, as it should. So that's one thing. Another thing that I want to mention about professionalism versus empathy, but from an entirely different angle. Right now we spoke from a managerial top level perspective, but when it comes to the rank and file and the attitude that the people who work very closely with a person with disability, we are actually at an advantage in India. And I'll tell you why I say this. I was speaking to a lady who was an NRI, and she's brought up her son in San Francisco. And she said that, I never feel comfortable with hiring somebody who is from an American background. And when I traveled with my son to India, I stayed with him in an alternative sort of setup in Pune, and all these girls, young girls, 14, 15 from local backgrounds, they were so forthcoming and so much more helpful. And in their attitude that they had towards who they were working with, it was much more familial, much more based out of kinship, not calculated by the hour where it is elsewhere, because people here perhaps don't have that strong sense of this is my profession and that's why I must do it. Everything, all of our relationships are computed based on kinship ties, so much more to the point where even our house help, they really raise small children like their family, and they become a part of family. So as far as empathy versus professionalism is concerned, at a rank and file level, I do think that we are at an advantage rather than a disadvantage. And the attitude that we have is perhaps much more beneficial than the attitude that would exist in a country like the US, where professionalism and, thinking of your work as a service that you are providing prevails.
Very true. And as you said that in my team as well, we have the average age range in my team is around 24, 25. And on regular basis, I get amazed to see the kind of bonding, the kind of empathy, at the same time, the kind of professionalism they have. And each time I see them with a child, it feels like it's their child. So, and it takes a lot to have that practice and have that standing as an individual. And as you said, yes, it's very true that our culture is very gifted with that kind of mindset. And it's definitely a huge, we talk about the difficulties of being an Indian, but I believe that's a huge advantage here in our country. But Divya, as you talked about the uh, propagation and continuation of such residential cares through the team, I believe that calls for a lot of capacity building trainings, because that can be, and particularly more from the visionaries and the people who are taking such approaches to a leading area. So in that connection, it calls for a lot of capacity building program for professionals, for parents, for every single person. And I believe I'm sure there are different capacity building programs happening around, and I'm also hopeful that we will come up with more capacity building such programs.
I am very happy that you asked that, because one of the sub projects that we have going on is coming up with tiers of courses to roll out. We call it the Training Academy project. We really want a very professional class of caregivers to come up. We came up on this idea when we were in affiliation with Keystone, where we realized that a lot of the knowledge that is imparted in our field is on a very informal basis, just, learning hands-on, and it's mostly fulfilled by domestic workers. There's no professional training per se that is really equipping somebody with the skills. So we're creating different courses to be rolled out through different colleges, through different education institutions, to actually build up this class of professionals. And then the professionals go and fulfill the role, because they're equipped with the knowledge, they're equipped with the best practices. And this is really how it becomes self-sustaining. So even though one of our main projects is the residential campus, that's not the extent of our vision, because we realize that, like you said, any kind of change has to become a movement, and it can only become a movement when more and more people get involved. So what we're really trying to put in place is structures and practices through which we can have more and more people getting involved and getting equipped with knowledge, with awareness, with the right practices. So then they can take the baton forward and they can be the new torch bearers.
Thank you, Divya. I'm very happy that we touched upon very important areas today. Over to you, Priyanka. I think we have a couple of questions on the chat box too.
Yeah. So one question we had from the audience was like the usual way of rehabilitation that we know about, the rehab centers that we know about, and the way you talked about residential care today, they actually look very different. So you did mention a few parts, aspects of it, how it can be made impactful. So would you like to touch upon a few more pointers, like how we can choose the right residential care for our children? That's question number one. And another question is there, that is, I guess Shampa ma'am asked it, that when a neurodiverse child is going to a neurotypical school, a regular school as we know it to be, they are not having a very wonderful experience over there. So what are the ways that this can be mainstreamed? So yeah, these two questions we have.
Divya, if you can take the first question, the residential care one. Yeah.
How to choose the correct residential care service for your child? I have to say that I hadn't expected that question, so it's a difficult question for me. I would say what I would do if I had to look for a place for my brother, say, I would look at the values of the organization, and not the values that is, say, written on their website, but I would go visit and I would see the kind of values that their leadership has, and that the kind of values that the rank and file, the leadership is able to impart into their rank and file. And I think the values are very visible in the practices. So just something very small. If somebody is moving around with somebody who's in a wheelchair, and they ask them before putting them on a ramp, or they ask somebody when they're talking, they make sure that somebody with a disability is included in a conversation. That shows the value of the organization more than anything else, more than any proclamation on the website can. And these actually are instances that are more visible to parents than any other group of people, because they see it and they understand. So I think just going to an organization and seeing how people behave with each other and seeing the values underlying that behavior, just that's the best way to judge, or at least that's how I would do it. It's a very personal choice, so I don't think I have a better answer than this.
That's wonderful.
I think Divya, to sum up, it's just like be yourself. Get inside the organization and be yourself. See what suits you best. And I'm sure the answer that you have just given, with that, parents will have the idea. Parents will have the next level of question, that when we visit there, things are always extremely good. So the point is, we are all very experienced with experienced individuals. Definitely, when Divya ma'am is saying that go and visit and be there, it doesn't mean be there for one day. Spend time. You are taking a very important decision of your life. Spend time, be there. I mean, get into different scenarios and then decide.
And grill them with questions. I mean, we get a lot of challenging questions from parents, which I think is very appropriate. I mean, after all, somebody is thinking about giving that child to us. So parents ask all kinds of detailed questions.
So true. I mean, many a times the parents feel that if I ask too many questions, will my child be treated properly? Yes, they will be treated properly. And once you ask more questions, they are the organization knows that parents are aware. So awareness is always empowering. So definitely.
Another point is, and it's sad that this is the case, it's predominantly the case, but I wish it wasn't. I feel that parents are more likely to trust organizations that are parent owned. I know I see this attitude myself, because that just makes you feel that somebody has a personal stake in it and they're much more likely to be doing the right things. And there's also a very real fact that a lot of not-for-profit organizations are known to swindle money. So when you don't see an organization being parent owned, automatically you start feeling suspicious about what their real intentions are. But whilst all those suspicions are legitimate and have a ground, I still say that going and spending time really reveals a lot. And beyond the point, they really can't hide themselves if you're constantly going and asking questions and spending time.
And even when our children are staying there, it's the constant monitoring process, asking for feedbacks, questions that can actually help the parents to understand if their children are getting proper services at the center. Priyanka, we have the next question.
Yes. So the other question was linked to that, kind of, that not linked to this. Other question was linked to a regular schooling. So would you like to take that up, Amrita? Yeah. So parent asks that when they send their neurodiverse children to a neurotypical school where majority are neurotypical and the inclusive setup is not on, they are not having good experiences. I mean, quite obvious. So what can they do about that? And also there was a tag question that is there really a possibility of some way or the other sending a neurodiverse child to a regular schooling? That was the underlying question. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. So the first thing is the national education policy is talking about inclusive education. It has came up with a lot of promises. We do not know, and I mean, we have learned from history that promises are meant to be kept, but in reality, promises are not kept all the time. But we are hopeful. To answer specifically to that question, yes, when a neurodiverse child is taken to a neurotypical school, there are different kind of challenges. We talk about inclusive school, we talk about integrated schools, and in many cases, as just Divya mentioned about the practices of organization, it's extremely important that you go and visit, see the kind of setup, the kind of practices, the kind of dealings with the children. It's extremely important. It all depends on the child, the severity of the special needs, if the child will be capable of handling, because whatever we are talking about, it's a perfect, a picture perfect. That is not going to, that will take time to take its own, to shape up. So definitely in the meantime, when you are approaching, life will move on. So you have to approach such institutions. You need to see the way they are dealing with kids. You need to take feedback from parents who are already there, and you need to keep your eyes open. So whether a neurodiverse environment is right for, neurotypical environment is right for a neurodiverse child or not, it depends on that particular individual and depends on the setup that you are taking the child to. So it will be, I mean, we are moving, we are growing, we are learning, but we are not in a process where we can definitely say that please take your neurodiverse child to a neurotypical setup and you will get the best kind of services. But definitely more schools are coming up with such services, and I'm sure with time this is going to improve.
Thank you so much. I guess we are just at the right time to finish our webinar. There has been another technical glitch. I'm so sorry, I beg your pardon, because the form that I created for the feedback is not functional. So I'll send the feedback form via mail, as we have sent the link of the session to everyone. Please respond there, so that we also know that what you're expecting from us, and we would be able to issue the certificates that we have planned for you. So let's wrap here. I would like to call Papyadi, who's our CEO and co-founder of the DeepRanjani Foundation, for the vote of thanks, please. Papyadi, over to you.
Priyanka, I think another question has hit the chat box, if you want to take it up.
Right. Some age limits are there in regular school, but our children who are going through therapy, if they are not. Okay. So Shampa ma'am has another question, that if
I have read it.
yeah.
You want to repeat, please, for others? Yes.
Yeah, so she asks that in the regular schools, they have some age limits for admission, but our children who are going through therapy and various interventions, if they do not, get to join the schools in the regular time that the other children are doing, what should we do then? Yeah.
So, Shampa, I would like to say that the approach, I would like to talk about the approach here. It's not about taking your child to a neurotypical school or a neurodiverse school. It's about what is best for your child. So there are certain difficulties. Yes, you can, when you approach a regular school, they will have their standard age limits. That is definitely a challenge. But then they have flexibility as well for special needs if it's an inclusive or integrated school. So they have special different eligibility criteria for special needs individuals. But then it's not about, the focus shouldn't be taking a child to a normal school. It's not about attaining the status of sending a child to a normal school. It's about what is best for your child. And you should approach, if it's possible, you should approach that in that manner only. So get the child diagnosed and understand the strengths and challenges of the child, and talk to professionals, get opinions, talk to fellow parents who have experienced this same journey, and then decide.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Shall we wrap now? Kapedi, over to you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to thank everyone joining here today. We are celebrating International Month of Persons with Disability throughout the month of December. On behalf of DeepRanjani Foundation, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Amrita Panda ma'am, founder and MD DeepRanjani Foundation. And I would also like to thank to our another speaker, Ms. Divya Somani ma'am, Outreach Coordinator, India Autism Center, for their time and valuable guidance today. My sincere thanks to all participants for joining in today's webinar. I hope the discussion will add a value to your day-to-day challenges. And once again, thank you, all of you. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. See you around. So we are again coming up with a lot of other webinars and workshops, capacity building majorly. We'll keep you all posted. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Divya.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amrita ma'am. Thank you,
It's
Papia
a
ma'am.
pleasure having you here today.
Likewise. Pleasure to be here.
See you. Bye-bye.